Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. I'm your host, Amy Beltran, CEO and founder of Irresistible University. I'm here to teach you how to love yourself, to drop the body image issues so that you can lose the emotional weight and gain the confidence to look and feel irresistible at any size. Welcome back to this week's Irresistible You podcast episode. Today I am asking you the question, are you eating your emotions? We are going to be diving into emotional eating and all the things on today's episode. Emotional eating is the number one reason why we overeat. And when we overeat, we are overweight. So being overweight, I always tell you guys, it's a symptom of something bigger. It's a symptom of something else that you don't want to deal with. And in this episode, I'm going to define what emotional eating looks like. We're going to talk about why yo-yo dieting is actually instigating your emotional eating and it's stopping you from getting to your goal weight. And then I'm going to give you a couple of strategies that you can put into action and that you can apply to your own life so that you can start to address your own emotional eating. I feel like logically, common sense ish, we all kind of know what emotional eating is, but I want to talk about it a little bit deeper than just that. And surface level, emotional eating is eating when you're not physically hungry. It is you eating to eating to either comfort yourself, eating to soothe some kind of emotions that you're dealing with that maybe you don't want to feel. Emotional eating also happens out of habits. We have a lot of habits that are deeply connected to food and emotion. We emotionally eat out of boredom, out of loneliness, and also from being in zombie walking mode. And I'm going to talk more about that as we get into the meat and potatoes here of the episode. So bottom line, emotional eating is when you choose to eat when you're not physically hungry. And it's usually driven out of some type of emotions, positive or negative. It can actually be it can be one or the other or both, and we'll talk about that as well. And a lot of these things that you're doing them out of habit because you've done it for so long. And you've done it for so long out of habit that you're just here in this zombie walking state that you don't realize you're doing it. And I would ask you to think about if you even know the difference anymore between emotional hunger and physical hunger. Because this happened for me, and I know so many other women that are in the same cycle where this happens. Most women who are stuck in the yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle can't even remember what physical hunger feels like. Because it's like we're so afraid to actually get hungry. We're so afraid to have that hunger feeling that we just kind of go into this panic and we do all the emotional eating, and then we never really are feeling actual physical hunger. And so a lot of what's driving your behavior is the emotional hunger. And that's what we're talking about today. So it's really, really important for you to learn how to differentiate between what is emotional hunger and what's true physical hunger. And the only way you can get to the place where you can do that is you have to be willing to step out of the zombie walking mode and step into self-awareness. Because so long as you are checked out of experiencing what it feels like to actually be in your body, you're going to continue to stay stuck in this cycle. And when we emotionally eat, and then we overeat, and the overeat turns into being overweight, and then you're on this cycle of being overweight, not feeling good in your own body, not feeling good in your skin, not liking what you see in the mirror. You are so disconnected from what it actually feels like to be in your body because you just kind of like disassociate in a sense, if that like if that makes sense to you, and you kind of go to this other place. So it's like you go to somewhere and you're physically there, but mentally and emotionally you're somewhere else because you're so obsessed and worried about what you look like and how miserable you feel, and you don't want to be there, and everybody's must be looking at you because you look too fat, and on and on and on the story goes. And as long as you are stuck in that mode, and when I say zombie walking, so for those of you that are new, welcome to Amy's terminology. This is one of my many terms that I use on the regular. But zombie walking is basically just that. Think about the zombies in Walking Dead. They're like, oh, and they're just kind of like walking around. They don't really know what's going on. They're just in autopilot. They're just walking around looking for that next meal. They don't care who's around them. They don't care what's going on. They're just going through the motions. They're not experiencing life. They're not actually like living and feeling their emotions. And so when you're zombie walking through life and you're an emotional eater, you're eating and you're going through the motions of your life, and you're dealing with all the stress, and you're dealing with all the things you have to go through as a human, and you're never taking a second to step back and look at and question what it is you're doing. You're just like, well, this is just the way it is. This is just who I am. And you just kind of go through the motions, and you act as though you have no control over your life, and you have little to no self-awareness of what it is you're actually doing, because you're choosing to zone out. You're choosing to not be in tune with how your body actually feels because it's so uncomfortable for you to feel anything in your body, because you just want to get the weight off of you. You just want to get the fat off of you. And you feel like if you tune into your body and you become aware of everything that's going on, then you're actually having to face the music. And that is exactly the problem. The problem is you're not facing and dealing with what it is you're actually going through. And so what that does is that just perpetuates the emotional eating. The emotional eating perpetuates the weight gain. The weight gain leads to feeling more, losing more confidence, not feeling good about yourself, and then not feeling good about yourself physically. What does that do? That then infiltrates into all areas of your life. You have low self-esteem, you don't feel good about yourself, you don't feel worthy, you don't feel like you deserve anything. So you're not going after things in your life that you know you really want. You're not going after the new job promotion. You're not starting that business that you dreamed of. You're not, putting your house up for sale and looking for something better because you don't think you deserve it. So something that starts out as, a little bit won't hurt, can snowball into this thing, this cycle of you now playing and living very, very small because you don't want anyone else to notice how big you've actually gotten. And it's just this vicious cycle that goes on and on and on and on. Now, here's the bottom line. The bottom line is this. Until you learn how to feel and process your emotions, emotional eating and overeating will always be a thing for you. It really, really comes down to, if you want to break the yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle, if you want to lose more physical weight, get to your goal weight, it really comes down to a couple of things. Number one, you have to lose the emotional weight. And then number two is you have to have a strategy for processing those emotions in the moment. So let me explain what that means. When we talk about losing the emotional weight, when you go on this journey, let's say you join Irresistible You and you go on this journey and you learn how to lose the emotional weight. Losing the emotional weight doesn't mean you're never going to feel anything bad or negative ever again. What it means, the emotional weight I think of as like the past stuff. So the emotional weight is this buildup that's inside of you of all of your stories, your beliefs, your feelings, the BS things that you tell yourself that you believe to be true. Things like, I don't deserve to be happy because I'm too fat. I don't deserve to start dating because I don't look the way I want to look. Those are all these BS stories that you tell yourself, these beliefs that you have, and we all have them. And those things start to build up, and that's one of those things that's pushing you through zombie walking mode because you're not actually questioning, Why do I feel this way? Why do I believe that I don't deserve this? Or why is it I'm scared to go after that promotion? And then you're not digging deeper to really figure out, oh, it's because I don't feel good enough, right? So I think of the emotional weight as like this buildup that's happened over your lifetime, over the years of things that you've heard, things that weren't said to you, things that have happened to you, and it just formulates all of your beliefs, your feelings. I also call these rules that you create for yourself in your life. So you have to learn how to first lose the emotional weight. But just because you lose the emotional weight, again, doesn't mean you're never going to feel anything bad again, because you will. And I think that's another issue that comes up, is you feel like if you start going down this path and you're doing good and you're working on your mindset and you're losing the weight, and then all of a sudden this like challenge comes your way, you feel like, oh, here we go again. This always happens to me. I have to start over again. And when you change, and I want you to go back to last week's episode, which was about the fact that there is no finish line in weight loss. And that's what I'm talking about here, is that there's always going to be something, as they say, new level, new devil, something else that you're going to have to learn how to deal with. So it's losing that emotional weight, and then it's also having the strategies in your pocket to deal with the emotions in real time, if you will. So when you're sitting there and you feel this craving and you want to eat because you've had a bad day or someone pissed you off or you're feeling sad, how do you then process that in the moment? So it's both of those things that you have to work on. Now, what about the reasons why we emotionally eat? Let's talk about that. So I want you to think about, what are the reasons for you personally that you are using food to deal with your emotions? I think we all just assume that emotional eating is tied to negative things. It must be tied to trauma and negative things, and that's not always the case. And let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100 right now, y'all. Food tastes good. Some food tastes amazing. And to deny that that is true, you're doing a disservice to yourself, because you're creating a lie. So first and foremost, it's this like coming out and like realizing we don't have to be afraid of food. And I think when you're an emotional eater and you've struggled with weight going up and down, there's this like fear of certain types of food, of losing control. And it's not the food that's causing you to lose control. It's you don't have control over your own thoughts and feelings. And we also have to be real that the fact that we use food as a connector, right? Like we use food to connect with family, to connect with friends, for holidays, for like, depending on what your culture is, food is such a big part of our culture and how you like interact with your family. And so many memories are made over food. And that's not really going to change. We just have to change where we use food in a negative space. We use food to deal with things that we don't want to deal with, right? And there's scientific evidence to back up the fact that there are some foods that give our brain this massive dopamine hit, just like a drug, right? And what happens is, over the years of you using food in this way, or always having to eat at a certain time of day, or always having to eat when, you feel a certain way, you have conditioned your brain to believe that this is actually making you feel better. Oh, I'll feel so much better when I get that ice cream. I'll feel so much better when I hit the drive-thru on the way home. Because your brain has connected that food to you feeling better, but it's a lie. Because the food doesn't change how you actually feel. The food doesn't change the fact that you still have these underlying emotions that you haven't dealt with. And then when that dopamine hit comes, you feel better for a second, for a minute, And then what happens? All the side dish, the dessert of guilt and shame pops up because now you're going through the body hate shame cycle of like, why did I do this to myself again? I can't believe this happened. I promised myself Monday. And it goes on and on and on and on. And the reasons that we tend to emotionally eat, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And it's not always just about soothing negative, sad situations either. It comes in a lot of different forms. Like, here's a couple examples, right? So, how many of you eat when you're out socializing? Or you have food friends. There's these like food friends that you go out to eat with, and that's really all you do. And it's like in a social situation, and there is some level of emotion that's attached to that. So that's what I want you to understand, is that emotional eating is not you just like slumping over on the couch watching Netflix and Hulu and ordering food and eating until you can't like button your pants anymore. There's other forms of emotional eating. And anything that has like you have this connection to, I always go out to eat such and such with my friend so and I love going out with her and it's fun and we always do this and we always order the dessert and the appetite, we order everything. That is emotional eating. There is like a high level of emotion attached to that event. Right? There's also like you emotionally eat to relax and escape. So I can attest to this like big time. So when my daughter was first born, I would say I did this a lot in the first year, and I actually have noticed I'm starting to go down this road again because at 3 years old, she's having more like sleep regressions, and I'm just like, I'm at my wit's end with it. But here's what I would do. I have always been a working mom. I have never put my daughter in daycare, so she is here with me. My husband is here most days. He works in the evenings. And juggling a business and a baby is absolutely and utterly exhausting. And as much as I love my daughter, there's like this little bit of relief when she would go to sleep. Still, like, it's not in the past. Like, when she goes to sleep, I still feel this way. And I would have all these plans of like, okay, once she goes to bed, like I'm going to go back in the office and I'm going to bang out some podcast episodes, or I'm going to work on blah, 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 or I'm going to write this thing and this chapter in the program. And let me tell you, by the time bedtime rolls around, by the time I have been up since 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, dealing with work-related things, with life-related things, with baby-related things, I'm done. I'm spent. And it was something about having a little girl, having my first child, that I was like, you know what? I'm not a night owl anymore. And I used to be a night owl. Like, I would have this second wind. Yeah, that second wind is gone. And so all I would want to do is just go downstairs, sit in the peace and quiet for a minute, snuggle up on the couch with Chewy, who's my chihuahua, and my husband, watch some shows on Netflix, and eat. And so that kind of became like an emotional attachment to, there's emotion in that of like, I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel that I can finally like exhale for the day. And I had a connection in my brain that to be able to do that, I can't just sit on the couch and enjoy a movie with my husband and my dog. I have to have food also. And that's fine, but where it gets dangerous is when you're overeating due to that wanting to feel a certain way, and now you're overeating and abusing the food, which leads to weight gain and which leads back to the body hate shame cycle and the yo-yo dieting, right? So again, everything we're going to be doing in our life around our food and our weight, it needs to be in moderation, because there's nothing wrong with sitting around the TV, watching a movie, and having a snack. It's when you eat for the 2 hours in a row that you're down there watching TV. See what I'm saying? And so when you're seeking out relaxation or comfort because your life is so busy and you're so tired and you just want a moment to yourself, but you have to have food, That's emotional eating. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, so here's another one. Here's another one. I also started doing this as a new mom. And it's like, I think every mom, especially new moms, have found that there's like this magic in putting your baby in the car and going for drives. And even with a toddler, because it's like she's confined to her car seat. She has her tablet, she has her water, and she's not going to bother me and ask me 5 million questions if we get in the car and we go drive somewhere, right? So I would find that I started picking up this habit of wanting to get in the car and go for a drive to just get away so it would like be a little more calm in my day. And I also like driving. For those of you that don't know, I love to drive. I love to clear my head. I've always loved to drive and just like get away when it's like feeling like it's too much. But what I started doing is I was eating in the car also. And it was like I felt like I can't actually go for a drive to relax and clear my head unless I'm sipping on a smoothie or lemonade or a milkshake or I have fries or I'm eating something in the car. And that started to become a really big habit for me, especially as a new mom. And so that's emotional eating. There is emotion. So you see what I'm saying? Emotional eating, we don't just do it sitting in front of the TV crying in a bowl of ice cream. And I think a lot of you feel like that's emotional eating. So you're probably doing things and have rituals and routines and habits that you've never actually sat and thought about as emotional eating because you're in that zombie walking mode and you're not questioning and you're not self-aware of what it is you're doing. Another big one too is for those of you that work and for those of you that go to school is feeling like, so I used to do this a lot when I was in college. I would like, okay, I know I have to write this paper. I know I have to study for this exam. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I have a big ass bowl of peanut M&Ms, right? Or like I have this big like thing on my desk that I can nibble on as I study for a test. I tend to do the same things at times with work. And I find myself going downstairs and I'm like, what am I doing down here? Why am I down here? I'm not hungry. I'm not physically hungry, but there's this thing in your head telling you, oh, I need to eat this snack so that I can power through this project for the next 2 hours. And so that feeling, that emotion or that need, I really need a break, I need study food, I need a snack to get through this project at work, that is also emotional eating, right? My gosh, I even remember as far back as like middle school, I remember girls like saying, oh, I just need some sugar to get through the afternoon because you have like that mid-afternoon crash. You know, that is also emotional eating. So, also just any of these things from socializing with friends to holidays even that we have this emotional attachment to, I have to eat this particular pie or this particular like dessert because it's the holiday. It's whatever holiday and this is what we do. It can also be because you're a foodie. Like being a foodie is also emotional eating because you have this like love affair with food. And that doesn't mean you're in a negative headspace. It just means you're putting way too much emphasis on food. And here's the problem. The problem with all of it is when it is causing you to not feel good about yourself, to not feel good about your life, and when you start to feel out of control. That's when it's in a bad place. There's nothing wrong with wanting to eat Aunt Betty's pie at Christmas. There's nothing wrong with you and your best friend always go to the same restaurant and order the dessert. There's nothing wrong with wanting to relax after being with the baby and at work all day. The problem, again, is when you take it too far. The problem is when you start to eat without being self-aware. You're doing it as like in zombie walking mode. You're not aware of what it is you're doing. And then all of a sudden you're like putting all this guilt and shame on yourself because you've gained back the weight. Your clothes are getting tight. and you don't like what you see in the mirror. And what I talked about earlier, that then goes back to, leads to you not feeling good about yourself, not having self-esteem, not feeling worthy, which infiltrates out into your life. That is when it goes too far. And it goes too far because you're not self-aware. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. I have an episode where I talked about this, and you can go back and listen to it. And I think it's called How I Lost 60 Pounds. And my whole thing about it was, my answer will not impress you because it has taken a long time. And it has taken a long time, and I'm still in my journey. I still have some weight to lose. But it has taken a long time because I was determined that the weight wouldn't come back. I was determined that I was going to lose it for the last time. And I was going to lose it for the last time by finally focusing on feeling the things that I didn't want to feel before. And so here's the deal, guys. I eat, for the most part, whatever I want. But the caveat to that is in moderation. So I don't deprive myself. I don't go on bullshit diets. I don't do any of that stuff. But the difference became waking the hell up, getting out of the zombie walking mode, waking up, becoming ridiculously self-aware of what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm choosing, what I'm feeling, all of those things. That's the difference. That's the difference. And so the lie out there, so there's like this lie that emotional eating is selling you, or like your brain is telling you, right? Is that the lie is emotional eating doesn't actually make you feel better. It doesn't take away the situation. It doesn't take away how you were feeling. It doesn't make you less depressed or less anxious, and it doesn't make you happy afterwards. It has the opposite effect. And then it just layers on all of this additional guilt and shame on top of however it was that you're already feeling. And so it's a great deflector of, I don't want to deal with this thing, so I'm going to eat, and I'm going to eat to the point of feeling sick. And now I can focus on, I'm such a fat ass pig. I'm so disgusting. Look at you. Your clothes are so tight. You gained back your weight. How did you do this again? And that becomes the focus and the obsession instead of what actually caused you to do it in the first place. And this is exactly why I tell you all the time that being overweight is not the problem. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of something else. And emotional hunger can never, ever be satisfied with food. But yet, we keep doing it anyways because that little dopamine hit and that connection that we have in our brain tells us, no, this is what you need to be doing. You'll feel better if you just, hit up the Chinese restaurant on the way home and get takeout. And that's why even when you feel full, even when you know logically you're not hungry, you keep eating even when it hurts your stomach. And this lie that you bought into, and you probably still have at this point, but this lie that you've bought into for so many years is that you are the problem, that you're broken, and the only way to fix you is to just get on another restrictive yo-yo diet, look for the next, like the big 2020 trend diet that's going around. Is it still keto or have we moved on? All the fitness and diet people are going to be out here like peddling all their programs. And you think, oh yeah, that's the one. That's going to fix me. That's going to make me skinny. That's going to make my life perfect, because if I'm skinny, I'll be perfect in every other way. More bullshit stories that you're telling yourself. Instead of investing your time and your energy into learning what your emotional triggers are in the first place. So you keep looking for a solution for something that obviously has never worked for you in the past, because if it had worked, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. But you convince yourself that it was because it wasn't the right diet, or I wasn't ready, or if I wouldn't have had this situation happen, it would have worked for me. And so this is why emotional eating and staying in zombie walking mode is exactly what's going to keep you stuck on the yo-yo diet body hate shame cycle. Until you're willing to go there and become super self-aware, you're going to stay stuck on this cycle. So my pet peeve, so every time I say, you know what my pet peeve is to my husband, he starts laughing because apparently I have so many of them that it just has kind of become a joke. But one of my pet peeves is when I see these like super generic articles or posts or videos from people talking about here's the ways to cure and overcome emotional eating. Go for a walk, like call a friend, blah blah blah. And it's like such bullshit advice, and it's so just like bland and generic. And it also makes it seem like if you just do these things, you're going to be cured for life. And here's the deal. I said this to you at the beginning. There will always be something for you to have to process. There will always be something you don't want to deal with, you don't want to feel, you don't want to think about. That will not go away. And so emotional eating, I don't know that it fully ever goes away. But what does change is you being able to identify it, you being able to process through your emotions, and then you getting to make a choice about what you're going to do with those actions, right? And so the big secret to overcome emotional eating is you have to feel the shit you don't want to feel. That's it. It means you have to deal with feeling the things that you have been avoiding for however long you've been avoiding them. And there's no other way around it. There's no shortcut. There's nothing that's going to like fix you other than you walking right through the messiness of it all and being willing to do the work. But how do you do that? How do you do all that, right? Again, ultimately, you've got to move from this place of being a zombie walker, acting as if you have no self-control over your life, acting as though you are asleep at the wheel to your own life. You've got to go from that version of you to the version of you that has extreme, radical self-awareness. Radical self-awareness. Self-awareness is when you are in touch with what you're feeling, by being honest to yourself, by not making up bullshit stories about what's going on, with you being truthful, with you being able to see yourself in the moment and go, wait a second, let me process this first, instead of just this knee-jerk reaction that you have today of like throwing your face in the M&Ms, versus you stepping back and going, why am I doing this in the first place? What's really going on? Right? So I just want to talk through a couple different strategies and things that you can do that are actionable, right? If you're starting to explore why you emotionally eat and how to stop eating all of your emotions. First and foremost, listen, I want you to meet yourself where you are right now. What I mean by that is, I don't want you thinking about what you should be doing. And here's what I mean by that, because this was me. I had a hard time with this for a long time because I would say, but yeah, if I wouldn't have given up that such and such diet, I would already be at my goal. But oh, if I wouldn't have gotten depressed because so-and-so did this, I would already be at my goal. And I would live in the I should have, and I was like shoulding all over myself. So what you have to be able to do is to just say, this is where I am. Every choice that I have made is what got me where I am right here, right now. And you've got to stop all of the judgmental thoughts and the resistance that's going to pop up in your head And you just need to sit in, this is where I am. It's okay. I made the choices that got me where I am today, but I know going forward, I get to make different choices to choose where I am in the future. And you need to sit in that and be in that moment and not be pushing it into the future, into the past about what you should have been doing or what you could be doing. You need to meet yourself where you are right now and understand that you're not going to go from today, I am like a chronic emotional eater, to tomorrow, I'm like a fitness model. I eat like a fitness model, because that's what you try to do with this bullshit yo-yo dieting. And that's why you keep failing, because you're not being realistic and you're not meeting yourself where you are. Okay. So number 2, you've got to let go of your yo-yo diet mentality. Because here's the thing. You're just like, I'm just going to power through it. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to start hibernating. I'm not going to go out till it gets warm outside so that everybody can see how much work I've done on my body and my weight. And I'm going to lose X number of pounds by spring break. Or, you put this ridiculous timeline on yourself with this number of pounds by this certain date. And I'll just put my head down and buckle down and do this diet as quick as I can just to get the weight off. But the thing is, you've already done that. You've already done that. And again, if that had worked for you, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now. Because when you do the diet mentality of, I just got to put my head down and lose this weight, and if I just do the keto and stay restricted, and if it's not hard, it's not going to work, and I just have to hustle, and you go into diet hustle mode, what happens is that stupid ass diet that you're doing, none of it's teaching you, how do I sit in my emotions? How do I process the emotional weight? How do I ask myself these questions when I feel a craving? No, it just teaches you that you're a piece of shit if you can't follow this bullshit plan. That's what it teaches you. So you've got to let go of the diet mentality, and the diet mentality of you thinking, I have to lose this weight by this date. You've got to let that go. Because what worked for me was when I finally said, I don't care how long it takes, but I'm not going back. I don't care how long it takes to get the weight off. I'm not gaining it back, and I'm not going back and playing the yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle. I literally cannot do this anymore. And I took that pressure off. It has to be by this date, and it has to be this number, and it has to be with this diet. It was like, no, I'm going to learn how to live my damn life. I'm going to learn how to live my best, most irresistible life. And if all the weight comes off, great. If it doesn't, great. And the next thing is I want you to get curious AF, so that you can start being an observer in your life and not a zombie walker. Because getting curious is how you start to become self-aware. You're not going to become self-aware overnight, because you have to remember, you are trying to look at and reverse a lifetime or years of habits and beliefs and rules and things that you believe about yourself and habits that you've created. And so right now, I want you to take the pressure off of yourself that you have to change everything now, because you're not going to do that. And if you have that mentality, you're setting yourself up to fail. So what you want to do is you want to get curious AF about, okay, all right, let's just see where this goes. If I can start really listening to my thoughts, to my body, how I'm getting in tune with how you feel, instead of being that observer of I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to feel what it's like to be in my body. I don't want to face the music. So let's just get curious and see where that takes us. And from there, you have to start listening to your thoughts. And we all know we have I don't know the actual number, but there's a gazillion thoughts a day that go in your mind constantly, that are playing in your head. And I used to think all this was bullshit years ago. And when I finally got this, it was so powerful. I always heard your thoughts determine how you feel and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, right. It's just a thought. but it's true. Your brain is so powerful. And the thoughts that you're having determine how you feel. And how you feel then determines the actions that you're taking. And a culmination of all of the different little actions, all the little behavior changes and actions and things that you do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, creates the life that you have. And it's either going to create a life that you really, really love, or it's going to create a life that you really, really don't love. And it all goes back to listening to what you think. Let me break this down a little bit, okay? So here's an example. One thought could be, ugh, why even bother with any of this stuff Amy's talking about? Because I've always been fat. I'll always be fat. No matter what I do, I always fail. I always go back to gaining back the weight. I don't even want to listen to what she's saying because this is just another bullshit thing. Okay? So you telling yourself, what's the point? I always fail anyway. That's a thought. I'm such a fat pig. I'm so gross. I can't do this. Okay? That thought that you have then becomes how you feel. I just feel so gross. I feel like a failure. I can't do this. I just feel like I'm not worthy of anything. And a lot of times your feelings, it's not like you're consciously sitting here going, I am not worthy. I don't have any self-love or confidence. No, it shows up in your actions because you feel unworthy, which is like under all this stuff. And then your actions are like, well, nothing ever works for me because I'm not worthy and I'm such a fat pig. So then your actions are, I'll just eat whatever I want and I'm going to be reckless in my eating. And then all of a sudden, I don't like the life that I have and I don't like what I see in the mirror. And it's like, it's not like it's that one thought and that one feeling, but it's a culmination of all of those things. And so the way that you break that is you have to start listening to your thoughts and you have to start processing them. And the way that you process those, it's so simple. It's so simple, you guys. You just start writing it down. I know. It's like, whoa, what? There's not like this crazy like answer. No. You start writing down and don't try to journal in your head. That doesn't work. I had someone tell me the other day that they don't like journaling, that they journal in their head. And I'm like, that's the problem, is that when it's all stuck up here in this brain chatter, you can't even begin to process and look at what it is you're saying and thinking. So if you just start to get curious and start to listen more, and I want you to start writing down, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling? What actions are you taking? And then do a food journal with that. So a really good way to start this, and this worked for me really well back in the day, was like writing down everything I was eating. And not just what I was eating, but how am I feeling? What am I thinking? What actions did I take? Like so then you start to see your patterns, your triggers, and you start to see how you're reacting to things. And until you do that, you don't know because you're just in zombie mode. This is how you become self-aware. Because you should know yourself better than anybody else. And if you don't know these things about yourself now, that's part of the problem. And, there's other things that come after this, but I want to keep it really simple and basic for you guys if you're just getting started with this, because then there's the whole process of, okay, now that I have this craving or this urge or like this emotional hunger comes over me, what do I do? And there's a whole process that I teach around that, and we do this in the Irresistible You program, around like, am I actually hungry? Do I just want this? Do I feel entitled? And there's like all these series of questions that you can ask yourself. But that's for another day. This episode is getting quite long. And I just want to end this on the note of you need to accept this is a process and it's going to take time and it's not going to happen overnight. And when you're stepping out of the yo-yo diet bullshit mindset, you're used to this instant gratification, and that's not going to happen here. This is going to take time, and it's a process, and you have to be committed to the process. And that's why you always avoid it. You avoid doing the work, and you just stay stuck on the yo-yo diet cycle. But meanwhile, guess what? Newsflash, the time has passed anyway, and you're not any closer to where you want to be. So just remember, the time is going to pass anyways, and the way that you're spending the time now with the crazy diets and the inner fat bitch chatter, it's not doing anything for you. So what if you spent that time actually doing things that could last you the rest of your life, that become actual lifestyle changes, that become actual coping mechanisms? Okay? So I hope this was helpful. Let me know what questions you have. Head on over to the free podcast discussion group on Facebook. It is linked in the show notes. That is where we will have discussions around each week's episode. You can ask any type of questions on not just this episode, but any of the others or anything related to what we cover here on Irresistible You. And if this episode was helpful or the podcast itself has been helpful to you in any way, please head over to iTunes and leave a quick rating and review. Thank you so much for listening. Until the next one, stay irresistible.